Hey, good morning. Welcome to the online campus of the Vineyard Church here in Bloomington-Normal. In just a little bit, I'll explain to you what's going to happen today through our online services. But do me a huge favor. Would you like this video? Would you share it on your personal feed on whatever platform you're watching, through YouTube, through Facebook, or any other means? And we would encourage you to take this and share it with your friends and let them know how amazing it is that you found us and hopefully found Jesus here online. As we get rolling here today, maybe make a comment in the comment section of this video, and one of our online hosts would love to talk to you. You can even ask for prayer there. You can also text the number at the bottom of the screen. This is our church's number, and somebody from our church staff will get back to you. We'll pray with you, answer any questions that you might have. The last thing that you can do is go to vineyardbloomington.com. That's vineyardbloomington.com. And when you get on there, it might be hard because you might be watching this on your phone or your iPad or something like that, and so you're like, oh, how in the world do I do that? But go to vineyardbloomington.com. Sometime during the service, maybe pause the video and even go there now. And there's a little button right at the top of the page that says Connect with Us. If you click on Connect with Us, you can give us your name and your email, and you can ask for prayer on there. You can tell us that you have interest in things like small groups or baptisms or anything like that. But that Connect with Us is kind of your lifeline to us, gets us not only praying for you, but also gets you on our weekly email list so you know what's coming up next in the life of our church. One last thing, if you have an amazing time today, or maybe you just want to be generous today, you can also, through vineyardbloomington.com, get on there and give. Click the give button, follow the instructions there, and you can reach out to us if you have any questions about that. But we're just so excited that you are here with us this weekend. Now, here's what you'll experience here on our online church every weekend. We'll do about 10 minutes of musical worship where you're going to be singing with our band. Just like we do here in our live services, and then you'll hear from one of our teaching pastors, either myself or my wife Corey, family life pastor, one of our other guests, but we'll let you know who that person is, and then it'll be done. So you're going to be with us for about 45 minutes to an hour. We're so glad that you're here. Enjoy the musical worship, enjoy the teaching today, and we pray that you engage with Jesus' love, with Jesus' good news, the gospel, today in such a way that your life gets changed and impacted. Have an amazing Sunday, friends.
God of Jacob, whose love endures through Jacob. generations. I know you will keep your covenant. I'm calling on the God of Moses, the one who opened up the ocean. I need you now to do the same thing for me. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness. Your faithfulness. I'm calling on the God of Mary, whose favor rests upon the lowly. I know with you all things are possible. I'm calling on the God of David, who made a shepherd boy courageous. I may not face Goliath, but I've got my own giants. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness. Your faithfulness. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness. Your faithfulness. You heard your children then, you hear your children now. You are the same God. You are the same God. You answered prayers back then, and you will answer now. You are the same God. You are the same God. You were providing then, you are providing now. You are the same God. You are the same God. You moved in power then, God move in power now. You are the same God. You are the same God. You were a healer then, you are a healer now. You are the same God. You
2014. I was in a really dark place in my life, and hitting rock bottom is just the most obvious way to put it, I guess. And on this day, it was a Sunday, and I had no plans, no intentions of doing anything that day, but I got up in that morning, and I felt this impression, this voice tell me to get up and get into my car, which seemed like a crazy idea, and I felt a little bit scared, to be honest. Didn't know what to do, but I decided okay, whatever, I'm just gonna do it. So I get in, I just get dressed, just put on some gym clothes, whatever, because I have no idea what's going on, no idea what I'm doing. I'm just getting in my car. So I get in my car and I just start driving. I'm just driving around. I'm driving around all over town, no idea what I'm doing, no idea where I'm going. And then I end up on this street in Urbana, the town that I was living in. And as I'm driving on this street, off to the left, there's a church, and I feel that same impression to turn into this church. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to go to church. I hadn't been to church in about 8 years at this point in my life. And I had no intentions of going to church that day whatsoever, but this was a little bit freaky, and I decided I'm just going to do it. For whatever reason, I decided just to do it. So I pull into the church, and I go inside, and I'm walking in, and I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing there. And some guy, one of these nice greeters that we have here at church says, hello, welcome to the Vineyard. Is this your first time? Which I was like, yes. I've never been here before. And so the guy, who takes me into the auditorium, he's like, we're just about to start. You can have any seat that you want. You can pick it and sit anywhere. And I'm like, here is good. Right in the back, right by the door, as close to the exit as possible, because I have no idea what I'm doing here, and I don't want to be here. But I decided to listen. I decided to obey this feeling, this impression that I had within me that day. And as the service started, there was a guest speaker who was there, and he's giving his sermon, and he's talking about these different chairs, and he's talking about this orphan spirit, and he's talking about all these things that sounded a lot like me. And I was like, this guy knows way too much about my life. And not only did I feel that way, think that way in my mind, but I also felt that way in my heart, as my heart felt like it was pounding out of my chest. And I was like, this guy knows me. This guy knows my life. And I'm on the verge of tears, and I hadn't cried in years. So the service ends, and I'm getting ready to leave. I'm out of here. I don't know, this is crazy. I'm going. I need to get up and leave. But I grew up Catholic, so I don't want to be rude. I'm gonna wait till we're done, and I'm gonna walk out when the pastor says you're free to go. And so wait till the end, and I stand up. And as I stand up, there's a gentleman in the front, and he stands up at the same time, and he looks right at me. And we lock eyes, and I'm like, well, now I can't leave because this guy has now acknowledged my existence. So he walks straight up towards me, introduces himself, and it was Happy Lane, who was the pastor of the church at the time. And so he introduces himself, and he says, welcomes me to the church and all that stuff. And then he goes on to say, were you in the military? And I said, yes, I was. And he just looks at me, and he goes, how are you doing from that? And that was it. He just asked me one simple question, and the waterworks started, and I just start wailing and bawling and crying, and he offers to pray for me, and like I said, I hadn't cried in years, and so he offers to pray for me, and I reluctantly said yes. So he prays for me, and I start feeling this sensation fall over me, and it's I'm not liking this at this moment, at this time, and I don't know what to think, and I don't know what to feel. And eventually he finishes praying for me, and then says goodbye, and he asked me to come back later. To which I was like, thank you so much for the invitation, but I've got plans tonight, or something to that effect. And so that night, as the time is kind of rolling around to when it was going to be this conference they were having in the evening, I just felt that same feeling within me, and the same impression that I'm supposed to go back, and this is somewhere that I belong. And so I go back. I ended up going back, and I go back in, and I sit back in that same seat as close to the door as possible. And the same thing happened. The speaker felt like he was, as we say, reading on my mail. And that night, I ended up giving my life to Jesus. And not only did I give my life to Jesus, but I gave my life to Jesus after a prayer, and after I was being prayed for. And in the middle of being prayed for, and as they're speaking things out these people couldn't possibly know, a weight was being lifted off of me, and I felt this immense weight just being tangibly being lifted off of me, and this like peace fall on me, and I just felt this lightness and this airiness. And it was after that I said yes and gave my life to Jesus. And it was all because I had this impression and this voice telling me to go somewhere. And even if I didn't know what was going to happen or what was going to be the end result, I decided to listen. And by me deciding to listen, I positioned myself to be able to receive what Jesus had for me that day. And we're going to talk about a story today about a man who did just that, whether he knew what he was doing or not. And so we pick up in John 9. Jesus is just walked away from an encounter with some Jewish people who he's now, of course, offended for the 1,000th time. They've attempted to stone him, and he just kind of walks away because, as you know, it wasn't his time. So he's just it says that he slipped away. So we pick up in chapter 9, verse 1. As he went along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" "Neither this man nor his parents sinned," said Jesus, "but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. As long as it is day, we must do the works of him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work. While I'm in the world, I am the light of the world." After saying this, he spit on the ground, made some mud with his saliva, and put it on the man's eyes. "Go," he told him, "wash in the pool of Siloam." This word means sent. So the man went and washed and came home seeing. His neighbors and those who had formerly seen him begging asked, "Isn't this the same man who used to sit and beg?" Some claimed that he was. Others said, "No, he only looks like him." Apparently there were a lot of doppelganger blind men in this town. But he himself insisted, "I am the man." "How then were your eyes open?" they asked. He replied, "The man they called Jesus made some mud and put it on my eyes. He told me to go to Siloam and wash, so I went and washed, and then I could see." "Where is this man?" they asked, which feels like a cruel question. He just started seeing. Of course he doesn't know where Jesus is. He says, "I don't know," he said. They brought to the Pharisees the man who had been blind. Now the day on which Jesus had made the mud and opened the man's eyes was the Sabbath. Therefore the Pharisees also asked him how he had received his sight. "He put mud on my eyes," the man replied, "and I washed, and now I see." Some of the Pharisees said, "This man is not from God, for he does not keep the Sabbath." But others asked, "How can a sinner perform such signs?" So they were divided. Then they turned again to the blind man. What have you to say about him? It was your eyes he opened." The man replied, "He is a prophet." They still did not believe that he had been blind and had received his sight until they sent for the man's parents. "Is this your son?" they asked. "Is this the one you say was born blind? How is it that he can see?" "We know he is our son," the parents answered, "and we know he was born blind. But how he can see now, or who opened his eyes, we don't know. Ask him. He is of age. He will speak for himself." His parents said this because they were afraid of the Jewish leaders who already had decided that anyone who acknowledged Jesus was the Messiah would be put out of the synagogue. That was why his parents said, "He is of age. Ask him." A second time they summoned the man who had been blind. "Give glory to God by telling the truth," they said. "We know this man is a sinner." He replied, "Whether he is a sinner or not, I don't know. One thing I do know, I was blind and now I see." Then they asked him, "What did he do to you? How did he open your eyes?" He answered, "I have told you already, and you did not listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you want to become disciples too?" Then they hurled insults at him and said, "You are this fellow's disciple. We are disciples of Moses. We know that God spoke to Moses, but as for this fellow, we don't even know where he comes from." The man answered, "Now that is remarkable. You don't know where he comes from, yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners. He listens to the godly person who does his will. Nobody has ever heard of opening the eyes of a man born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing." To this they replied, "You were steeped in sin at birth. How dare you lecture us?" And they threw him out. Jesus heard that they had thrown him out, and when he found him, he said, "Do you believe in the Son of Man." "Who is he, sir?" the man asked. "Tell me, so that I may believe in him." Jesus said, "You have now seen him. In fact, he is the one speaking with you." Then the man said, "Lord, I believe." And he worshipped him. Jesus said, "For judgment I have come into this world, so that the blind will see, and those who see will become blind." Some Pharisees who were with him heard him say this and asked, "What, are we blind too?" Jesus said, "If you were blind, you would not be guilty of sin. But now that you claim you can see, your guilt remains." He saw a man blind from birth. As he went along, he saw a man blind from birth. I don't want to gloss over the beginning of this because Jesus is walking along just as we would walk along any other time. And it seems like an obvious thing because this man is standing outside of the temple, or he's just standing alongside the road somewhere. And it says that Jesus saw a man blind from birth. And I don't want to suggest that Jesus didn't just see the man, but he saw him. Saw him for who he really was. Saw him beyond his blindness. Saw him beyond the circumstances and the situation that he was in. He saw him in his fullness and the original intent for which he was created. Jesus saw him. Now, not in the same way that we see others. And if we're honest, we see people like this blind man all the time. At Walmart, along the street, on the side of the road, begging, with signs, with cups, with open hands, sad faces, all sorts of things. And we pretend, if we're honest, we pretend not to see, because if we don't see them, then we don't have to do anything about it. If we don't see them, then we don't have to do anything. But Jesus saw him, really saw him. And if we're honest, we do that even in amongst ourselves, not just people on the road, not just homeless people. We do that amongst ourselves with our rote greetings to one another. How are you doing? You don't actually want to know how we're doing, because if you really knew how I was doing, you feel like you didn't know what to do, like you wouldn't feel like you know what to say. You don't actually want to do anything about my situation, and then you prefer that I would answer that I'm good, so that you feel like you've accomplished and your responsibility or whatever, to make sure to check in on how I'm doing, but you don't have to actually do anything about the situation that I may be in my life. And that's a harsh thing for all of us to acknowledge, but Jesus sees this man, sees him. And he sees each and every one of us. He sees you. He sees you, really authentically you, in all of your brokenness, all of your pain, all of your struggle, all of your addictions, all of everything that you are in or have done or will do in the future. He sees you as you are. He sees you and he stops. He sees you and he stops. And he doesn't just see you as you are, but he sees you as he intended you to be. So he sees this man. Sees him. And I want to propose that this man, like in my story, whether he knew it or not, had positioned himself to be seen. So the man was positioning himself to receive, right? He was out begging. Now in this time, it wasn't like our time. Now, while very difficult, and I've never been blind, but we have means and accessibilities and things like that, and we've created adaptations and different technologies and things to where like blind people can make a living for themselves and have a way to get around and do things that they wouldn't otherwise be able to do without those things. And in this time, not only was he physically unable to do anything for himself, but he would have been cast out from everything. He would have been kicked out of his home. He wouldn't have been allowed in synagogue. He wouldn't have been allowed a part of celebrations. He wouldn't have been able to work. He wouldn't have been able to do anything. His only means to be able to survive was to rely on the grace and the giftings and the pity, just even the pity of other people just giving to him. So he was already in a desperate desperate situation and in a position to only be able to receive. He was only in a position to receive what people have from him. And it's so hard for us in those positions in our life where we need healing, we need freedom, we need breakthrough, we need all those things, and we believe in it and we pray for it. But we also have the physical ability to do something about a lot of the things that we have in our lives. So often we don't position ourselves to be able to receive as this man positioned himself to receive in fullness. He was positioned himself to receive. We only maybe partially do that, but we use the rest of the remaining part of our energy to be able to go and God's taking a little bit too long on my breakthrough, so I'm going to go do a little bit of work over here to make sure that even if God doesn't come through, I've got this other thing. I got plan B working out over here. I'm going to work a second job. I'm going to make sure that I do this. I'm going to go and get counseling. And there's nothing wrong with counseling, but do it in conjunction with what God is wanting to do in your heart as well. There's other things that we decide to take into our own hands. God spoke a promise over us, over you, and maybe there's a word that you've been given, a word that you heard, a promise that you've been given, you've held on to that tightly. And so often that we can become too often we can be we can become like prisoners to our own prophecies. Prisoners to our own prophecies, because we don't get to actually experience the fullness of what God has for us, because we're too often trying to work ourselves into the prophecy that God gave us in our own way and in our own strength. And I'm definitely the first person to raise my hand for this, because so often I feel like time is ticking. God told me that I'm supposed to do this. I'm not getting older, but I'm not getting younger. And my God, you told me I need to be free from this. I need to be free from this, because if I don't get free from this, it might start affecting my relationships with my family and with my kids. And they're getting older. I don't want them to have that. So God, you need to take this away. And often we'll just take it, and we'll just try to, in our own strength and in our own wills, power through to be able to accomplish something that we feel like needs to happen immediately. And this man was born blind. And he was an adult, as his parents said. So he had been blind for a very long time. But Jesus saw him, and he was positioned he was in a place where he was positioned to receive. And so Jesus, as we know, as we goes on, and Jesus makes the mud by spitting on the ground. I don't know about you, but it would take a lot of spit to wet some dirt to turn it into mud. So this man must have been hearing the constant as Jesus is create spitting over and over again to be able to create this mud that he covers in this man's eyes. And but he just lets it happen. I don't think he even knew what was going to happen. It's not like Jesus was I'm going to heal your eyes by putting this mud over your eyes. He didn't tell him that. He just says it just goes. He's he just, after he said that his blindness happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. He says that after he says all of that it's daytime, we must do the works that we have been sent to do. He goes and breathes his mud and puts it on his eyes. He doesn't say do this and you will be healed. He just says he just does it. He just does it to the man's eyes. And so often we're looking for a specific way. We want God to heal us, but we want God to heal us like this. We want it to be clean. We want a clean healing. But God gets in our messes. And when God gets in our messes, it doesn't necessarily become more clean immediately. It gets a little bit messier at first. And in this moment, this guy got a little bit more messy. And too often in our lives, we're looking for healing, we're looking for release, we're looking for relief, we're looking for breakthrough, and all these things. And we're looking for it in this clean package, this clean cut package, in the way that we want God to operate in. But God's saying no, this is the way that I want to do it over here. And it's not looking the way that you want it to be done. And often we can miss the miracle that God has for us because it's not packaged in the way that we want it to. And God's not going to do the same thing and the same type of, he's not going to heal the same way. But this was if we're reading the Gospels, Jesus healed a blind man in Matthew, he healed a blind man in Mark, and he healed a blind man now in John. And every single one of those blind men were healed different. But what all connects them was faith. And this man had faith, and we see it right here. So it goes on, and he puts the mud over his eyes, and he says, go. He says, go. Wash in the pool of Siloam. This word means sent. So the man went and washed and came home seeing. I don't know about you, but this man is blind. And Jesus, he's already can't see. And now Jesus is now further, I don't know if he could become more blind, but he's covered his eyes with mud, and now he's sent them to this pool. I don't know how far this pool is away from where they were. And it doesn't say that Jesus led him or said hey John, can you take him to the pool? He didn't say any of those things. It just said the man went. I don't know how long and how he got to this pool, but he managed to get to this pool, and he just did it. He just immediately obeyed. He had the faith and if we're honest, the desperation and the desire to be healed, to just do it. And so he just immediately obeyed. Now I want to propose, and it goes through here, and after he would have been walking through the streets. Now, this man has been already outcast from birth, from the fact that he was blind. Not just that he was blind, but because people associated in that time sin, his blindness with sin, whether it was him, as the disciples asked, whether it was his sin or his parents' sin. And so this man has already been outcast, and people already recognize him and already have an opinion of him and a perception of him. And now he's walking through the streets with mud on his face. Mud that was made from spit. And he's just walking through the streets. And if we would be so bold and so desperate and so vulnerable to allow God to work like that in our lives, we would see more breakthrough. We would see more freedom in our lives. You would get the healing that you would want to get. But too often, as we said before, like we talked about before, with the packages in which God decides to put our healings into, we reject those things, and it keeps us in bondage. It keeps us in bondage, because whether it's the way that it's packaged or the perception that other people may have of us in the necessity of you needing to be vulnerable, the necessity of you needing to show other people the real you, the necessity of you needing to speak something out, to say something out loud, to bring it out of the dark, whether it is an addiction, whether it is an affliction, no matter what that thing is, God is asking you to let it out and let it be shown. But too often we're so consumed and so worried about what people may think of us that we can miss the breakthrough and miss the miracle. But if we would just have the boldness and the desire and the desperation to just say, I don't care what other people think. I don't care how other people see me. I'm trying to get free. I'm trying to get free. And so he goes, and like I said, he washes at the pool of Siloam, and he comes home seeing. Then afterwards, everybody questions, it says his neighbor's isn't this the same man? And everybody questions whether it's him or not. And if any of you have been saved, whether you're saved now or got saved a long time ago, and you've submitted to what God is trying to do in you, even from the very beginning when you said yes, there's something different about you, and other people may not recognize it right away. And that's why so many people say no, it only looks like him. And that's because something already immediately had happened beyond just the fact that he could see. So people couldn't see it for who he really was. So then we move on, and so that he gets questioned and investigated by the Pharisees, to which he boldly continues to tell his testimony and tell them exactly what happened. tell them exactly what had happened, and he tells them multiple times. He tells the people one time, he's like, this is what happened. This man named Jesus, he put mud on my eyes, I washed, and now I can see. And he says it again, and then he says it again. And he keeps telling these people, and he's like, this is exactly what happens. This is exactly what happened. And they didn't want to hear him. So, and as he continues to be bold in his testimony, more stuff comes to him. Because it says, if we move on like down lower into verse 30, it says, the man answered, now that is remarkable. You don't know where he comes from, yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners. He listens to the godly person who does his will. Nobody has ever heard of opening the eyes of a man born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing. This is a revelation this man has. And it may seem like, oh yeah, he must have heard that in Jewish Sunday school. He wasn't allowed. How did he know this? How did he know to have this truth? And I suggest that it came from the fact that he was continuing to be bold in his witness to the people around him. And as he was continuing to be bold in his witness, God was speaking through him and downloading revelation to him. Because this is a revelation, and he wouldn't have learned that in Jewish, so like I said, Jewish Sunday school, because he wouldn't have been allowed. So Jesus heard that they had thrown him out, and when he found him, he said, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" And I just want to stop here for a second as well, and recognize once again that Jesus sees him. Not only Jesus didn't leave him. Jesus didn't like, okay, you're healed, and now you're free, and he just sent him off, and now you're on your own. Because after you've received Jesus, and after you've received healing, your life doesn't necessarily get a lot easier. And then the example, this man's life got a ton more controversial. And we could go, there's a whole nother sermon just to talk about the additional healing this man would have had to go through just in this relationships. Think about the fact that his parents, that he was estranged from his parents due to the fact, because of his affliction, and they didn't want anything to do with it. Think about the healing that would have needed to take place from this. And so there's a journey that Jesus wanted to walk with him beyond just opening his eyes physically. He wanted to open his eyes spiritually. And so he finds him. Jesus doesn't just see him once, he sees him twice. He sees him 2 times. Once when he couldn't see him, once after. And so he says, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" And he says, "Who is he, sir?" The man asked. "Tell me, so that I may believe in him." Jesus said, "You have now seen him. In fact, he is the one speaking with you." Then the man said, "Lord, I believe," and he worshipped him. What strikes me the most in this interaction here, other than the fact that Jesus found him, when he found him after being kicked out of the synagogue, again, he was not allowed in, he was blind, and now he's not allowed in because he didn't see. So Jesus finds him. But what strikes me is those 2 words in verse 36. Tell me. Tell me. Now this man had no ability whatsoever to be able to lean on and depend on his sight. And now he can see. He'd always had to rely on his other senses, hearing, and all his things. And even in this moment, even though now he can see, and now he can see everything around me, including Jesus who is now in front of him, and he doesn't know it yet, his instinct is to say, as long as you tell me, I will believe it. All you need to do is tell me, and I will believe it, and I will worship him. And that's exactly what happens, is Jesus tells him, and his response is to worship him. And to, that's the basis of faith. That's the basis of faith. Because as it says in Romans 10:17, faith comes through hearing. And we live, and as you know from 2 Corinthians 5:2, we live by faith and not by sight. So this man had the incredible faith, not just to have the obedience to follow what Jesus had asked him to do, but he had faith to believe in him before he knew it was him, simply by hearing. He was okay, and he was content with just hearing the truth. And could we be so bold as to just be content with hearing and not relying on our sight? Because our sight will lie to us. Our sight, we can't. If we rely too much on our sight, our sight will lie to us. But if we rely on our hearing, then we'll hear the truth. The truth will set us free. And just as Jesus said to Thomas, who was unfortunately nicknamed Doubting Thomas, which is really unfair because just one time. And could you imagine that, like, you were just nicknamed something that you did, even if it was more than one time? Anyway, but after Jesus comes back and Thomas did doubt it, Jesus says, Jesus goes on to say, like, you have believed in it because you have seen. And Jesus says, blessed are those who have not seen and believed. And so I just pray that today, like, wherever you are, physically, spiritually, everything, just know those things that Jesus sees you. He sees you where you are. And if we would just position ourselves to receive from him fully, to be like in a position, and I mean, when I mean fully, I can do nothing outside of you. Nothing. And in that faith, we can see right. So let me pray as I close. So God, I just pray right now for everybody underneath the sound of my voice. The Holy Spirit, you would come right now. Jesus, I ask you would come and you would reveal yourself to each, every person underneath the sound of my voice. And you would show them yourself right where they're at. That they would see you seeing them. Right now, I just pray for boldness for each and every person to open up fully the full you, the real you, the broken you, the messy you, all of it right in front of Jesus right now as he gazes upon you in love, and allow him in whatever process he needs to go through with you, whether it's just by a word or with mud over your eyes. Let it happen. I pray that we would have the boldness and the courage and the desperation and the desire to be fully in a place of being fully loved. You just speak your healing, your wholeness, your peace and grace over everybody right now. That we be able to walk in the fullness of the creation that you have intended for us to be. In your name.